Hello, my name's Jim Friend, and in this tutorial we're going to make this 3D animated globe with flight path using the free version of Cinema 4D Lite that comes with After Effects. Alright, so here we are in After Effects. Let's go up to File, New, Max on Cinema 4D file. It's going to ask you to save that. I'm going to save mine here. It's going to launch Cinema. We can close this dialog box. Now let's import our globe. If you've downloaded my project files, you can skip ahead at this point, but I'll show you where and how I got them. So I found mine at turbo-squid and I searched for globe and went free, again cheapskate, and I picked this little guy here. Download the Cinema 4D version, open that file. That's going to open our globe, and then we just want to copy and paste this globe into our linked file from After Effects. So going over to our objects, highlighting both, and Control or Apple C to copy, then going over to File, Recent Files, and it should be the second one down is your linked file because it was just open. Then Control or Apple V, and that will paste it into our linked file. Let's save that, Control or Apple S. Let's just set up our scene here. So going up to render settings, changing this to HD 1920 by 1080 and 25 frames. Also changing our project settings, Apple or Control D, and changing this frames per second to 25 as well. Let's save that. And let's head back to After Effects and drop this 3D map into our comp. There you can see our globe. So this is on draft view at the moment. We can change that to current to show our final view. Let's save that and head back over to Cinema. Now to move around the scene, we are going to use 1 to position, 2 to zoom in and out, and 3 to tumble around the object. Okay, so that's how we're going to move around the scene. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you've got it, it's very quick. So I did notice a small issue with this model. If we zoom in here and I just show you the edge, see how this isn't flush, so we kind of need this land to extrude out, which is a bit tricky to do. So if you're fine with that, you can still work with this object. You see, you can see it here underneath the earth. If you're fine with that, you can work with this object. If not, download my project file and I fixed it. I'm going to go and grab that now. As you can see, I've just kind of duplicated a few layers of that land just so it attaches to the surface of the water. Great, so let's start by making a material or colouring the globe. So we can delete these two down here, just click and delete, and double click to make a default material, and double click again to go into the material editor. And here we've got some options for colour. Of course we can choose whatever we want from these sliders. A really nice feature within Cinema 4D is this colour picker, and you can do a triad, you can do complementary colours. I'm going to use this tetrad, so we get 4 colours from one. And I'm going to get a kind of blue going here, and obviously we kind of want a green, which we're going to get as well. And I'm going to also get rid of this reflectance under here, so uncheck that box, and that looks good to me. I am going to dump that onto the sphere. Alternately, you can just dump it straight onto the water. Then we're going to make the green for the land. I'm going to come down here, Control or Apple click until you get a little plus symbol. Going to let go, call this water and this land. double click to open up those properties. And again, we still got our, if you don't see this, by the way, you can just click this little drop down menu, and then you can kind of scroll through some of these functions. So this is going to give us a complementary green, so let's select that. We can close that down, and we can add that to our land. So you can see where I've stacked up all the land on top of each other. So you could either, you know, copy and click and drag all these down, or alternately you can just group them all by hitting Alt G and grouping them all, and then putting that material on the group. Call this land. Okay. So next we're going to actually add our flight path around the globe. So I'm going to go from London, where I am, over to Australia. We're going to use the 4-up view. So if we go to this little icon in the corner, click once, we'll see our top view, front view and right view. This will just help us pinpoint the location a little easier. So first thing I'm going to do is just align all these globes. So I'm going to use the 1 key and the 2 key just to bring these into the center. Something like that. If you accidentally hit the 3 key, it's going to actually rotate the view, which can be a bit disorientating. So if you want to undo that, it's Shift or Control Z, or Apple Shift Z if you're on a Mac. So now we need to find the UK for our first point on this map. Because I've stacked a few things up against each other, it's quite hard to see. So I'm actually going to turn off just by clicking, making this little icon red here, making them all red apart from the top one. Okay, so that gives us a little clearer picture of what we're looking for. Obviously we still need to find it within this. I'm actually just going to zero out some of these properties of the rotation. So 0, 0, 0. And I think if we highlight the land again, this is the UK here. We can kind of zoom in using the 2 key and kind of find our position. So that's it there. So let's, and we can kind of see it there as well now. So let's put a point there. So going to go up to our spline pen and just click once, just where we think that is. Now you see we need this to be kind of married up on all these views for it to be in the right location. I've clicked there, but it's actually added it way below here. I'm going to use the 1 key just to show you where that's ended up. Now if you put your mouse over that, instead of creating another point, we can actually, I'm undoing that, and we can actually move that point up, and we can use the 3 key on our perspective view to just, and the 1 key to shimmy round, and we can just see where that's landed. So we can now zoom in a little bit with the 2 key. This is all very good practice for navigation, and we can zoom in here. And that looks pretty good actually. I can see that is on top of the surface. You see, if we were to do this in perspective view, it could end up anywhere, and it's very hard to kind of reposition something in perspective view in 3D space. So that's that point. I'm going to zoom out again, and we're still connected here. I'm going to zoom out again. If you do obviously make a connection, you can just undo that. And we're going to come all the way over to Australia here, so straight through the middle, and we're going to add a keyframe there. As we can see again, that hasn't quite lined up with our front view, so we're going to just take that point and shimmy it over to Australia. And obviously in this top view it's not lining up, although it looks quite good on those views. So again, we're going to come to our perspective and just rotate round, see what's going on. It's sticking out the side. So for this I would probably go to my live selection, and now I can move it on the axis. Obviously we can grab the middle and move it anywhere, but that's no help to us. So let me undo that and move it on the axis. So this is the X-axis, just getting it into position here, and on the Y-axis, using 2 to zoom in, just finding that position there, and just orbiting around to make sure that's kind of close enough to the surface for us. And that looks good, like that. So as we can see on our top view, this is a spline going all the way from the UK to Australia, and the Hyperloop hasn't been invented yet. So let's do this by flying around the edge. So to do that, I'm going to, still on my Spline pen tool, I'm going to, it's automatically trying to draw the next line. So just to get rid of that, I'm going to hit escape. Then I'm going to come to the middle of the spline and right click, add point, and then on that point I'm going to click again and do soft tangents. So now we can just drag out that point, and we can also see what we're doing on our perspective view. So let's just zoom out a little bit here, see what we're doing. So this is the point we've dragged out, not quite far enough yet. So let's keep coming, and obviously we need to extend these Bezier handles. So I'm going to grab one, kind of something like this, and I'm going to grab the other and something like that. And obviously you can see this is creating a bit of an S shape, so we can actually straighten that out either here in our front view, or you can start playing around in perspective, but just be aware that it might not be quite the movement you thought you were making. So it's still intersecting some of our land here, so we just need to stretch it out a little bit more. Maybe it needs to come out a little bit more for this last bit, so it kind of comes in and out. That looks good. So if I was to render this now, and we can go up to our interactive render region and just spread that box across. We're going to bump the quality up here with this little slider all the way to the top. So you can see there's no geometry around that spline. So we need to use something called a sweep to sweep some geometry across that spline. So let's do that. We can come back out of this interactive render region. We can come up to our generator objects, go to sweep, add that, just click, let go, and we can make the spline a child of the sweep. So just making sure this little arrow points down. So we still won't see anything. So that's the sweep looking at the spline that we added. Now we actually need to show it the geometry we want to sweep down it. So we're going to go up, we're going to create a circle spline. Just go up to our pen, click, hold it, circle spline, add that, and make that a child of the spline. You'll just see that little down arrow. This is going to create a huge bit of geometry. So just to shrink that down, let's hold the T key and just click and drag across until that looks reasonable. Keep going, something like this. So now we have a nice loop around our Earth. Next thing I want to do is taper the edge slightly, just so we don't get this harsh edge. So going to the sweep object and details, we're going to go to scale, bring that scale down, kind of just shape this slightly. You can see there we're getting a bit of a taper. I can make that really extreme just to show you, but we're going to make it quite subtle. And for the other side that's going to Australia, we're going to taper that as well. That's happening on the other side. So that looks good. So let's add the animation to this. So we're going to go to our, still staying on our sweep object, and we're going to jump forward to 5 frames on our timeline down here. Let's go to 5 frames, and we're going to do end growth. Let's bring that back to 0, add a keyframe, just hitting this little button next to it. Jump forward to 40, move it to 100% and add another keyframe. And if we play that back, we can see the sweep object sweeping round that spline. Let's add the movement of the camera, but actually we're going to move the globe instead, because orbiting the camera around the globe is a little trickier. So let's just move the globe. So let's get this into position, maybe go a little wider, something like this. We need to make all other objects a child of our sphere or our water. I'm going to rename that, so that when we rotate one thing, they all rotate along with it. So let's bring the land and make it a child. You'll just click and drag and you'll see a little box, and then the arrow goes down. That means it's going to be a child. And the same with our sweep object. So now when we click on our water, go to our coordinates and rotate this, everything rotates along with it. So I'm going to just undo that, and we're going to jump to 5 keyframes. We're going to add keyframes on all 3 rotation properties, and then we're going to jump to 40, and we're going to rotate this so Australia is in our view. So to do this, we can go full screen into our perspective view just by clicking that little icon up there. We're going to press R and then rotate this globe. Now, as you can see, you can rotate it freely, just clicking anywhere for rotation, but I'm going to undo that. The way to have a bit more control is to use these axes, so we can actually snap the rotation along these axes. So if we're using the y-axis, we can highlight this green one. That's going to rotate us round. And then maybe we want to rotate on the z-axis, z-axis. And then, you know, just basically find our way just like that. And you could do the last bit just a bit more freehand if you want, if that helps. But that looks good to me. So now on frame 40, we are going to set our keyframes. So unlike After Effects, you have to set keyframes after you move. It doesn't automatically do it. So we'll just jump back and let's zoom out a little bit, just holding down 2 to just come back a touch. Play that back, and there you go. So 2 more things. I'm going to add a material to this flight path, change the color, and I'm also going to smooth it out a little bit, as we can see some kinks. So first off, let's smooth it out. We're going to go to our sweep. Inside our sweep, we're going to go to the spline we drew, and we're just going to go to objects and down to change adaptive to subdivided, and as we can see, that's just smoothed that out slightly. Next, let's change the color. So down to our materials, I'm going to click and hold Control or Apple, let go, create, duplicate another land, and we're going to double click. We've already got these colors selected, so let's go for a red for this. Obviously, if you don't see this, you can choose any color you like, just like, you know, any color picker. So let's choose this red, and I'm going to drop that onto our sweep object in our materials. Alternately, you can just drop it on here. It might be a little bit fiddly to do, but yes, you can. So then we're going to come back to the top, just watch that animation again. So one thing to remember is just go back on the land and bring these back into view. And if you wanted to retime this animation, I'm going to go to Window, Dope Sheet, and because everything's underneath one keyframe, we can actually just select the end keyframe and drag it out, and then we can play that back. You can see that's a lot slower, or we can really speed that up if we like. Last thing I'm going to show you is the stripes on the flight path. So if we go onto our material for that, and go to color and texture, go down to surfaces, checkerboard. You can see that adds a checkerboard effect to it. Now we're going to click through to that texture and we're going to zero out the U frequency, and then we can choose whatever colors we like for here. I think I had a red, and then we get something like that. So finally, just heading back to After Effects where we have to render this and giving it a RAM preview. There you go. Well, I hope that was useful. If it was, please consider giving it a like and subscribe. Really helps the channel when making new videos. And if you're just getting started with 3D and want to start learning the basics, I've got a free course over on my website. There's a link in the description below. And here are some other videos that I think you might like.